So the Xbox Direct thing happened. I was rather surprised to see a new Obsidian title I didn't know anything about. Avowed. It's a fantasy RPG that's obviously aping Skyrim's bit. And then something caught my attention. They were talking about the player like they were a real badass.
You're either here to save us or destroy us.
Now, aside from the fact that I don't need to be told how awesome I am, I'm really disappointed. I mean, come on, we're doing the whole Outer Worlds thing again. When I say Outer Worlds thing, what I really mean to say is failing to have any interesting choices whatsoever. This has been a real sticking point for Obsidian ever since they, stopped making good games. New Vegas, specifically. New Vegas was their last big hurrah when it came to actually making games where your choices mattered. After that, they sort of just forgot how to do it. And when I say forgot how to do it, I really mean forgot how to do it. Most of that could probably be attributed to the fact that all their good developers just decide, I think I'm gonna go work for a company that actually gives a shit. I don't think I forgot about Bethesda as well. Bethesda's always had a bad issue with this ever since Oblivion. Your choices just don't matter. Whether it be gameplay choices on how you want to fight, to story choices or character choices. They're all so arbitrary and boring. What's the deal then? If Bethesda and Obsidian can't figure out how to put choice in their games, then what happened? What choices actually matter? First, I should actually clarify why I'm even concerned with this. It's very simple, really. That line.
You're either here to save us or destroy us.
That's so basic. It's the exact same line they fed you in the Outer Worlds trailer, if you'll remember.
You know you didn't have to shoot either one, right? But it's fine, I guess. You just keep being you.
The idea that you boil choice down to whether or not you're allowed to kill certain characters is ludicrous. It doesn't actually fit with what choice should be in a video game. People always use it as an example when they were talking about games because it was the most obvious one. Stuff like New Vegas was interesting not just because you could kill everyone, but because you could actually kill everyone and still complete the game. That was the point. There's only one character in New Vegas you can't kill, but being able to kill them and that being the choice you make wasn't actually the point of it. It was merely the act of respecting the player for being able to do that was important. In reality, choice in games is actually way more important for everything except killing people. Most RPGs and the like are gonna have you kill somebody, it's just kinda how they work. What matters more is why you do it, or if you do it in a certain way. Or better yet, it's more important that you have choices that aren't related to combat or killing people. So you could do something besides, getting into fights. For a great example, you could look no further than Prim, one of the earliest examples in New Vegas where the player actually has some serious agency in solving a problem. After defeating all the escaped convicts, you're tasked with finding a new sheriff for Prim since the old one got killed. To avoid any lengthy explanations, basically, there's 4 obvious ways you can go about this. 1, you could go and find a proper good sheriff from the same corrections facility those guys came from.
He's a good sheriff, but a hard man. He doesn't abide by anyone slinking by the rules. I guess there won't be any trouble, but the man's law is hard.
Secondly, you could just go to the NCR. The NCR would be happy to occupy the town and enforce their own laws, while of course also taking over the town and bringing it to the Republic. More taxpayer dollars coming in. Thirdly, and most humorously, you can reprogram the funny security robot in the museum, turn him into the sheriff. Or number 4, you could just do nothing, leave the town. If you do that, the whole place will eventually become a ghost town since there's nobody to protect it from criminals. See how those 4 choices are important, and none of them boil down to just killing somebody. These choices are all over the place in New Vegas, littering the entire game. You can't go anywhere without running into something similar to this. Bethesda has even worse problems with trying to actually implement choice. Look no further than Skyrim for a game where your choices basically don't matter at all. You can win the Civil War for either side, but does that really change anything? No, not really. You can complete certain quests and change the land, right? No, not really. Hell, killing the Emperor in the fucking Dark Brotherhood questline doesn't do anything. The Emperor of the continent is dead and no one gives a shit. Your choices have no real impact. They don't matter. You didn't do anything. It might feel like you did something, but you didn't. You're being taken for a ride. You're being told that your choices matter when they don't. And that line in the trailer just assumes the same thing. It makes it sound like we're not actually going to have any choices. It makes it sound like all we're going to be doing is killing things. The trailer was just combat. Really bad Skyrim combat, too. Same thing with Starfield. I mean, come on. Level 8 spacer? Fucking hell, dude. I get that levels exist in the game, but you don't have to tell me. Could you try communicating your mechanics in your world through something other than a shitty fucking leveling system, please? Most other games are struggling with this as well. The idea that choice could just be boiled down to if you kill somebody or not. For example, I've been working on a Dishonored and Thief video, and let me tell you, I can't stand games where they make the morality system based around killing or not. You just can't do it. You know, sometimes there's guys in the game that just needs to get their butt kicked. Somebody needs to kick them in the ass and say, "Nuh-uh, that ain't going on anymore, brother." If you played something like Dishonored, though, you're the bad guy. Don't hurt people, it's wrong, regardless of the circumstances. I could be in the most obvious self-defense scenario I've ever been in, but hang on, brother, you can't do that, because that's mean. Now, whether these issues would actually show up in this new Avowed game, I kind of doubt it. Obviously, they're leaning into the idea that combat's going to be super important, which I'm really looking forward to that. It's a shame, too, because Obsidian always had really good ideas in the past, and then suddenly they just shat the bed. The Outer Worlds is no different. You want a game where your choices don't matter, even though they pretend they do, you play that game. All that game has is very basic faction choices, or if you want to be a good guy, a bad guy, or a funny guy. The dichotomy of quests always ends up being choice A helps this group but hurts that one, choice B hurts this group but helps that one, and choice C is just the best one. So you just do that one, because it's obvious, it's the best one. Bethesda have this problem even worse. I mean, they did it all the time in Skyrim, assuming you had any choices to begin with. I guess it wasn't in Fallout 4 as much, but is that really saying anything? That game isn't very good. Name one choice in Fallout 4 that's consequential aside from what faction you pick. Boiling choice down to faction allegiance or being a good guy or bad guy isn't what choice is about. It's about respecting the player's agency in the game. If you want a really good example of this, look at something like Divinity Original Sin 2. That game lets you kill everybody, or not. The reason that the ability to kill everybody and still progress through the game exists isn't because it's just a cool thing you can do. It's to complement the idea that the player's actions can dictate how the game actually plays. It changes the pacing, it changes the events, it changes character interactions. The entire first level is designed around the idea that you can escape this island in all sorts of ways if you put your mind to it. But they all have different requirements, different ideas behind them. Some are easy for certain characters, others aren't. You want another example? How about KOTOR 2, a real classic? It's one of the best RPGs ever made, and it's unfinished. Pretty fucking impressive. That game revolved entirely around the light side, dark side dichotomy. Your choices were really important when it came to if you were being a good guy or a bad guy. Not only because they were important for the story and your character, but because it had a serious, noticeable, tangible impact on your companions as well. Bringing companions into this makes it even more complicated. You ever play one of these new games where the companions barely matter? In the Outer Worlds, companions barely matter. They're barely present. You collect them in the little cabins and they just kind of sit there. They don't do anything. Their quest lines are terrible. Actual dog water bad. And what's worse is they're making a second one. My hopes are not really high for this Avowed game. Or for Starfield, if I'm honest. I mean, sure, I guess it looks okay. It's a video game! I really am not trying to be a doomer here, but frankly, they're not giving me enough to chew on. And frankly, with the way Obsidian has been going, I don't trust that they've learned their lesson on choice. I know Bethesda haven't. For sure, they haven't. But gosh, I mean, even shitty games have this down. You know, Cyberpunk isn't the best game ever, but it did have some decent choice things going on in there. The more meaningful choices in that game related more to the side quests, which I actually prefer since that's what CD Projekt Red is good at. If you want another example, go and play The Witcher 3. That game's full of choices that are actually important. But these games, flawed as they are, still manage to get that part right at least. The requirements from the writers and the designers to recognize that your choices are important in this specific context were vital to those games. And they got them right, even if they weren't perfect. On the flip side though, stuff like Outer Worlds is barely even passing the bar in other metrics besides choice. It's a mediocre shooter, a mediocre RPG, and a mediocre experience overall. I mean, come on, just look at this Avowed gameplay. Doesn't it just feel off? It barely looks like it's a game. It looks more like I'm watching Elder Scrolls Online footage, and that's not a good comparison. Hey yo, real talk for a minute. How much money you think Atlas paid them to show all those Weeb games, huh? I'm betting 20, 30 mil, at least. 3 Atlas games, 2 of them being Persona? You know they're flooding them with that cash dollar bill. Man, now I gotta try and get on that racket. Sounds ludicrous. What a sorry state we're in.